Humor. The world is full of it. It's always around us and can impact our lives both negatively and positively. With humor, the essence of the joke can weigh heavily on each individual depending on their cultural background, race, and gender. This is the who, what, where, and when humor can be used effectively. What is humor? Humor can be defined as having the characteristics of being amusing or comedic. Everyone has a different sense of humor. Depending on your style can reveal many facts about yourself, such as your likes, dislikes, and views of the world. The old saying goes, there is a hint of truth in every joke. Keep in mind, every joke has a victim. This means that the jokes you are about to say will be targeted towards a person, race, gender, item, and so on. To use humor effectively, you should always have a part as the victim of the joke. For example, if a person telling a joke to a group of his friends is overweight and cracks a joke about obesity, then the humor is no longer offensive given that the sender falls into the same category. If the joke is about a race, for instance white people or black people, if you do not fall into that category of the victim of the joke, then the joke can be found offensive. As stated before, jokes can speak volumes about your beliefs. Too many political jokes and people will think you're anti-government. Too many racial jokes and you may come off as a racist. The list goes on. The way we speak about others and the way we incorporate humor into what we say, the more people take notice of the message you are trying to put out. Remember, humor isn't always verbal. Visual humor can also reveal enough for others to write a book about your values, norms, and beliefs. Everyone is passing judgment on what you think is funny. So say cheese. Everyone is watching what you post online. The best people to engage with are those who understand you best and possibly fall into being the victim of the joke, but this includes that you fall into the same category. Always keep it in between those you know. Using humor with the right audience brings out the best humor and serves as a great way to connect with people. It brings out many types of jokes, such as laugh at life humor, where one can relate and laugh at everyday experiences, bonding in the moment humor, such as social jokes between a crowd, bathroom humor for those who like gag humor or the occasional flatulence joke, and self-depreciating humor where one uses humor to make others feel better by making fun of themselves. Great comedians such as George Lopez, Bill Engvall, and Chris Rock all have a demographic following that understands them. George Lopez targets Hispanic and Latino cultures being that he's Mexican. Bill Engvall leans towards Anglo-American comedy given that he's from America and what most would consider the redneck background. Chris Rock bases his comedy about being black, given that he is black. Here are a few things you should know prior to using humor. Make sure you know which audience you are addressing. Check your sources. Remember, you want to make sure you have accurate information. The most important, the delivery of the humor being illustrated. Each step is crucial in humor and is necessary for achieving effective humor. Knowing your audience is the first step. Remember, you want to fall into the same category as your audience so that you do not come off as rude or insensitive. Everybody is watching and can tell a lot about you based on your humor. Always check your sources. Choose credible sources for information before incorporating it into the humor. The last thing you want is trying to use humor within a crowd, speech, or piece of literature and the information you're using is not correct. Last, the punchline of the joke. Always think before you speak. Make sure to look back at the joke or humor and stop and realize that you are standing in front of someone or many people who may or may not be offended by what you have to say. Following these steps will enable you to achieve effective humor and you'll be the belle of the ball. There are certain settings where humor is best appropriate. Take this photo for example. The statement may be true for some, but if your father-in-law saw this posted on your Facebook, do you think he'll have a great perception of you? Use humor in places, timing, and with people you are comfortable with. Humor can be effective in places such as a classroom. A professor can ease tension between her and her class with good use of humor. The workplace also represents a great opportunity for good humor. Workplace humor is very motivating. It becomes easier to work with someone who has the same sense of humor you do and can make it easy for you to trust them and them to trust you. The last step. Timing is everything. The last thing you want is to choose an inappropriate time to use humor. Always check the setting, time, and the emotional state of the audience. Do you really think humor is funny at a funeral? Always remember your motives when timing your humor. Stop and think. Are you socializing with a friend, reassuring a friend after the failure of an exam, or using it to uplift someone after a breakup? Remembering all these steps can make you the easiest person on earth to speak with.
In this section, we're going to discuss workplace humor, the do's and don'ts, topics that can be discussed, and things to look out for when you're using humor in your workplace. Tips for using workplace humor. Although some of these tips listed may be obvious to many, to others they're not so obvious. You always want to be a leader first and a comedian second. You want to stay away from subjects like racism, sex, ageism, and any other forms of discriminative jokes. You want to laugh with people, not at them, and use the humor to bring people together and not shun them away. Don't force it. Let the comic and the humor come naturally and organically. And be careful with sarcasm, as some people don't often find this form of humor that funny and actually may find it even insulting. Although using humor in the workplace, we need to take precautions. Humor in the workplace can breed success. People who enjoy a good laugh together would also enjoy working together. Laughing is relaxing and can make humor a potent stress buster. Humor also creates common ground between management and employees. A key ingredient in creative thinking is humor. Humor can also increase productivity in a company. And humor can not only boost morale, but also retention. In today's day where there's a lot of turnover in many corporations, humor assists in keeping talented professionals not only happy with their job, but also without looking for another one in another company. In this side, I've listed workplace humor topics. On one side, there's topics that can be used freely. On the other side, there's topics that you should maybe stay away from. And they're very comparative. So for instance, you should always use humor that's related to your workplace, to the job. You don't want to use too much humor from outside of work, as depending on your colleagues, they might not be the same as your friends from outside of work and may not find the same things funny. Always focus on positive humor and stay away from negative humor, as again, your friends may find it funny, but you don't know how your colleagues are going to take it. You want to have humor that's inclusive, and you don't want to alienate people, so you always want to keep something that everyone can laugh at, and you're not laughing at a particular person. Stay on the safe side and use a lot of caution with humor in the workplace, because not only can you lose some faith from your colleagues, but you could also lose your job. Stay away from all risky topics like politics, religion, sex, and also stay away from making fun of others. In turn, make fun of yourself or even make fun of customers. Again, this is within your workplace with your colleagues. So try to always keep that in mind. The last slide focuses on delivering workplace humor. Much like a great comic, your delivery has to be good as well. So delivering workplace humor is as important as the content. Try not to do any humor via email. A lot of people use the email in every professional workplace, and sometimes we abuse it a little bit. Remember, once an email is sent out, you can't bring it back. Emails can be printed, used against you, and many corporations actually monitor emails. So what you may think is funny between you and a colleague may actually cost you your job, or it can cost you that next promotion. Always deliver workplace humor in person. Try to stay away from text messages as well, and always do it face to face. Remember, if someone doesn't find something funny, you can always apologize, but you can never take back something written or sent via an electronic message. You also want to know the mood of your coworkers. Is one of your coworkers down? Is one of your coworkers frustrated about not getting a raise? So try to always feel out the crowd, just like a good comic. And separate a serious meeting from a relaxed one. If there's a very serious meeting where they're talking about laying people off, might not be the best time for a joke. But if there's a heated discussion about an account that needs to be closed or end of the month type conversations, maybe you could, put in a little joke there. And try not to create an audience. You don't want your boss walking by the water cooler and you're just standing up there like if you're Chris Rock, delivering an hour-long set. So, say jokes between people. Much like in school, you don't want to be the class clown. You don't want to be the work clown either. So create the camaraderie with some little workplace humor. But again, do not be a comic. Thank you for your time.
All right, all right, all right. You gonna learn today. Hello, my name is Elder Vaya, and I'll be speaking about same-gender humor. The differences between manly and women humor, the influences on same-gender humor, and finally the conclusion about same-gender humor. Let's begin. Manly humor. These are the types of manly humor. You have sarcasm, sexist, making fun of others, inside jokes, and silliness. Of course, sarcasm, inside jokes, and silliness is more of a universal term of humor. However, for men, it's different. With sarcasm, inside jokes, and silliness, I believe that it's more inappropriate and very immature and very vulgar. Sexist, you have you're making fun of your mom jokes, and saying your sister looks good today, and all those type of jokes that are very inappropriate. Making fun of others, I think, is a stand for manly humor. Just making fun of your buddy that something he wears or says, I think is a stamp of comfort between one another, and at the end of the day, it won't be taken personal. Let's move on. Women humor. These are the types of jokes for women: silly jokes, sarcasm, inside jokes, and imitating men jokes. Silly jokes, sarcasm, and inside jokes, once again, is more of a universal term. However, what makes a difference between men is women are more appropriate and less vulgar about things. And I believe with sarcasm, it's more of the opposite sex for flirtation more than anything, and are very limited to do it within the same sex because they'll take it personal or not. Imitating men jokes is more in basis with just imitating the type of jokes that they would make, or like, oh, that's what she said, or your mama this. And at the end of the day, making humor of imitating men. Influences on humor between women and men. For women, emotions, intellect, relationship, stress, and maturity. And men, intellect, relationship, emotions, maturity, and stress. For women, they're more emotions oriented. It's more about what they feel as opposed to what they think. That's why for women, it's more difficult to get along with other women because everything is taken personal. As opposed to men, it's more intellectual and more laid back, which I think creates a great balance between the two. So let's move on. Conclusion. What is funny and what isn't funny for same gender humor? I believe what differentiates men and women are in these four components: emotional, personality, culture, and intellect. With emotions, it's based on more of maturity. Personality is based on more of you're an introvert or an extrovert. Culture is more of where you come from, and intellect is more of what you understand of the humor. This is my presentation, and I thank you for your time.
Humor and race. Is it ever okay? What is racial humor? Racial humor is a type of joke that's based on someone's ethnicity or race. They may be jokes directed at a certain ethnicity, or they may be jokes shared between those of certain ethnicities. When is it appropriate? Between close friends or those of the same race? Sometimes racial humor can be a great way to bond with a stranger. Sometimes one of the fastest ways to get a stranger to dislike you. Even then, some jokes may be off limits. It's all about knowing your audience and reacting accordingly. Targets of racial humor. Races or ethnicities or religions. All three can be viable subjects. Whether it's black, white, Asian, Middle Eastern, or whatever race you may identify, there's always jokes about them. The same thing with religion. Catholicism, Christianity, Hinduism, Muslim, atheists, all of them are targets. Even ethnicities. However groups organize, they themselves may have self-deprecating jokes and others may have jokes to offend.
This is Noemi Javier with the do's and don'ts of appropriate humor. Be a joker, not a jerk. While doing some research, I overcame this quote that said, "Laughter and humor heals the soul in most difficult times," by Charles Bankart. Humor works wonders for your health by relieving both physical and emotional stress and connecting you to others. In some of the research that I found, there was a study at Johns Hopkins University stating that humor can also lower blood pressure, increase blood flow and oxygen to the brain, work out the diaphragm, abdominal, respiratory, and back muscles, improve alertness, creativity, and memory, reduce certain stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, and lastly, it increased memory and learning. The do's of humor. While doing research, I noticed that it is always better to be safe than hurtful. Know your audience and tailor your humor around them. Make your humor self-depreciating when possible. About yourself, very importantly, not about others. Fit your humor into the content of the conversation. Include the whole group, no inside references. Incorporate humor into your everyday conversations and presentation. I put a picture of Ellen DeGeneres because she's such a well-known comedian, stating, "I want to be an example that you can be funny and be kind and make people laugh without hurting someone else's feeling." And finally, we have the don'ts of humor. Never make jokes about people's appearance, sexuality, religion, social economic status, or ethnic heritage. Don't make fun of people, only the situation. Avoid using humor to complain about your colleagues, supervisor, teammates, or friends. Never use profanity in an appropriate reference. Be careful when using sarcastic humor. It can come off as insulting, arrogant, or snarky. This was the very most important, I think, because this can make or break any situation, any friendship,